Basically, you know, I'm here today. I'm just going to ask a general question because over the last year for the Grassroots, this has been kind of a civic experience for us, you know, learning what's going on. I mean, a couple weeks ago, if you'd have used the term demon pass, I'd have been thinking demon sheep, you know, what exactly is a demon sheep? We don't know what that. So we're all learning. So I guess my first question is if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what exactly, for the Attorney General, what exactly would be, say, the Hillsdale College or Claremont Institute definition of what the Attorney General role is in California?
Well, first, a little bit about myself. I have a bachelor's degree where I studied American political philosophy, and I went on and got my doctorate at Claremont Graduate School, which was the best place in the country at the time for studying American political philosophy. We learned about the natural rights foundation of America, the principles of the Declaration of Independence, that our rights are God-given, they aren't a gift of government, and that the whole purpose of government is to secure those inalienable God-given rights. And that when governments quit doing that, it's the ultimate authority of the people to change their government to get it back on track. You remember a couple of months ago when President Obama was giving a State of the Union address and misquoted the great line from the Declaration about all men are created equal. He says that was part of our Constitution. Well, it's not. It's in the Declaration of Independence. But his ignorance about that, I think, belies in ignorance about this other provision in our Constitution that both he and the whole century of progressive movement have misunderstood. See, they think when we've for a century been accepting higher taxes and higher regulation and greater intrusion on our lives, that because we haven't had a revolution yet, that must mean we've agreed with them. But there's a line in our Declaration of Independence that says we won't change our government for light and transient reasons, that will suffer abuses while they remain sufferable. But at some point, they become insufferable. And then at that point, it's not only the right but the duty of the people to rise up and alter or abolish their government. And what we're proposing in this election year is to help get our government back on track. So it gets back to protecting our inalienable rights, not taking them away. And there's just a tide swell, a groundswell, a movement that you all are part of and leading the charge with, that began in Virginia and New Jersey and Massachusetts, and it's coming all the way here to California. And it's impressive, and people are grabbing their constitutions and asking their elected officials, where do you have the authority to do that in there? And I've been with the Claremont Institute for almost 30 years, and I run the litigation center that we created there. And the mission of that institute is to restore the principles of the American founding to their rightful and preeminent authority in our national life. And what's happening now is our fellow citizens are demanding just that of our elected officials. And it's exciting to be part of that, riding that wave, and then hopefully to get in office where we can actually implement this resurgence of focus on acting constitutionally again, and that our elected officials have their authority from the Constitution, and if it's not there, they don't get to do it. That and whether it's challenging the regulation of the Delta smelt as exceeding federal power, or retroactive pension grabs that exceed state constitutional power, or undermining the will of the people expressed most recently in Proposition 8, or a decade ago in Proposition 187. These constitutional things are there for a reason, and it's time we had an Attorney General that would stand up for the Constitution and the will of the people. And quite frankly, I was so sick and tired of what I saw going on. My wife and I were discussing whether we ought to leave the state. And at the end of the day, I said, we're not going to leave, we're going to fight, and that's what this is about. The stars are lined up well to make it possible for somebody like me to win, and I intend to win this year. And the amount of good we can do, helping fix this state, but also stopping this socialized medicine bill that was approved this week in Congress. From the Attorney General's office, without having to go through the legislature or anything else, it's just applying the law, which is what the chief law enforcement officer of the state ought to be doing. It's something that I can do just by gaining the office.
Yeah, fabulous. Go ahead, Angelo.
I love the quote that you've been using is securing the blessings of liberty. I wonder if you could tell me why you chose that, number one. And number two, I was wondering, how could Barack Obama, who states that he's a Constitution attorney, go ahead and do this health care plan the way it was done?
Yeah, because, let me start on securing the blessings of liberty. There are two aspects the job, Attorney General. One, the traditional one that most people know is as the top cop of the state. The Attorney General supervises all the district attorneys. And one of the things that we do with government, with the Attorney General's office, is make sure that we offer everybody the equal protection of the law. We secure the blessings of liberty for them by enforcing the criminal code and putting guys that would destroy their liberty or their property or their lives away for a very long time. And so that's one aspect. But securing the blessings of liberty is from the preamble of the Constitution, and it conveys much more than that. The full phrase is we implement this Constitution to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. And the blessings of liberty are those things that were God-given to us, but bequeathed to us by our founders with a constitutional structure that was designed to protect them. And when we adhere to that constitutional structure, we protect those blessings of liberty, not just for ourselves, but for the next generation, our posterity. When we start spending trillions of dollars of money that we don't have and imposing debt on our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids, we're not securing the blessings of liberty for our posterity, we're enslaving our posterity. And so that phrase kind of encapsulated both aspects of the role of the Attorney General, but in a much broader sense that I aim to bring to that office. Now, Barack Obama, he claims to be a constitutional scholar, but what he is not a founding understanding of the Constitution. His is a view of the Constitution that took root, and it's a pernicious view, that took root in the 1930s, that the Constitution is archaic and no longer should be complied with. It imposes impediments to government doing good. And if we could just find ways around the Constitution, we could do more good. This is the essence of the progressive vision of government. And it is contrary to human nature. It's contrary to our founding understanding of the document. And yet there's this living, evolving view of the Constitution that has been taught in our law schools for so long. He probably actually thinks he's supporting the Constitution by not supporting it. Some of his law professor colleagues have actually said faithful adherence to the Constitution means ignoring it. That's the only way to be, have fidelity to the Constitution, because the founders themselves would have wanted it to evolve. My former boss, Justice Clarence Thomas, there's a line that justices that are often appointed that are conservatives to the bench, and then they evolve and become more liberal, evolving, living constitutionalists. And he's got a big sign on his desk that says, "I ain't evolving." That's a good description of my campaign and my anticipation for serving in office of Attorney General. I'm going to adhere to the Constitution. I'm going to have the same positions about that today as I'll have 4 years from now. And it's not an evolving document. It's the will of the people expressed at the highest moment of our authority, and we ought to follow that if we're going to have any notion of the rule of law.
Thank you.